Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srimad Gaur Bhaktivinoda Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Krishna Chaitanya. Just going to read a little bit from the Ramayana. It's a condensed version, and it's being presented by someone who is more or less an Indian nationalist who loves the culture, and so he's presenting this as kind of like an Indian thing. But that's okay. We see through that. We know it's not an Indian thing. Although India is a really special place for Krishna. Many appearances there. It's old culture. So in one sense it is an Indian thing, but not ultimately. And it is part of Indian history, but it's also transcendental, because this is the personality of Godhead. He chose India as the place for his appearances and activities. But those of us that don't live in India, it's okay. It's all right. Actually, the whole planet was India at one time, but it's become shrunken down due to the, as time passed by and different the degrading process has been shrunk down, so now it's just this little. But actually the whole planet was India. It was the planet in the Vedic scriptures is Bharatavarsha, the whole planet. Hare Krishna. So this is our history, even though we don't live within the boundaries of the what's considered India now. We live outside those government boundaries. The whole planet was India at one point, Bharatavarsha, and it was governed and ruled according to Vedic standards. Hare Krishna. Such as the times we're living in. It's India is now like this little thing. But there's something going on. The Lord says he, from time to time, he appears to reestablish religious principles. So there's a revitalization on the transcendental plane going on. And it's because of the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago, and the chanting, which is the sacrifice for the age, is the chanting of the Mahamantra. Other types of practices are not as effective, and many of them can't even be performed. There just aren't enough assets on the planet to do the types of sacrifices and ritual worship and so on that was done in other ages. It's just not even available. So it's been made simple for us because it's such a terrible time for spiritual advancement. It's also the best time because it's made very simple, simply by performing the sacrifice of chanting Hare Krishna. It's the sacrifice for the age. It's the yagna, the sacrifice for the age. It's wonderful. So fortunate. It said that the demigods on the higher planets, they want to come here because it's very quick. In one lifetime they can go back to Godhead. As appealing and attractive as the higher planets may be to some, because of the unlimited sense gratification available and the very minuscule material sufferings, they, from what I understand, is they don't have like bodies like ours. They have bodies on those higher planets, but they're not lumps of material, gross matter. And they're more subtle. The bodies are more subtle. Hare Krishna. So they're not subjected to the different miseries so much that come with having a gross material form. So it's attractive to some. They want to go there. But those that are already there, they want to come here and take part in the yagna, the Sankirtan yagna of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because it's an express route. Whereas life on the heavenly planets, 50,000 years, 100,000 years, they live a long time. And they also run into difficulties. They forget Krishna. They do things that they shouldn't do. It's a material world. So even those higher beings, they want to come here now and take part, because in one lifetime they can get out of this whole thing and go back home, back to Godhead. So there's a sacrifice going on. It's glorious. It's the Harinam Sankirtan. Even the demigods want to take part in it. So this is chapter 10 of the Ramayana in this condensed version. And up to this point, Ram and Lakshman are traveling with Vishvamrita. They've come to the city of Mithila, and the king of Mithila is Janaka. And he has a beautiful daughter. Many princes have come to try to claim her, take her hand and claim her, but King Janaka wasn't too impressed with any of them. So he made a very difficult task. And only someone who could actually perform this particular task could earn the right to take his daughter. And it was a bow awarded to him by Lord Shiva, a very special bow. I'd like to find out what the significance of these bows is. I'm sure there's some discussion of it by realized souls, because this appears in many places. It appears in Krishna Lila also. Kamsa, he had a very mystical bow that was very difficult. Only someone who was empowered could string the bow like this, and Krishna broke that bow. I'm thinking of like some of these other things, not in the Vedic accounts, but what was it? The sword and the stone. Whoever could remove the sword from the stone, I think it's King Arthur or something, could then take the throne. He had to remove. No one could get the sword out of the stone, but this particular person was empowered and pulled the sword out of the stone. So there's different kinds of challenges that go on, and to win something very valuable. So King Janaka had a bow, one of these bows, and no one could string it. No one could even move it. It was so heavy, no one could even pick it up, never mind string it. And Ram was able to do that very easily. Picked it up, said like it was a flower garland, and strung it. And then he pulled the string back so far, and so he actually broke the bow. So he won Sita. So now this is, but actually Sita and Ram are eternal companions. It's an eternal affair. Sita Ram, Radha Krishna, Sita Ram. So their being united was, they're always united. So it was more like there was a mood of separation, and now the mood of separation has been lifted, and they're united again, although they're always united. Okay. Hare Krishna. Sita took birth so that she could be in this pastime with Ram. Just like Radharani, she took birth in Vrindavan so she could be in pastime with Krishna. But their taking birth isn't really taking birth, it's manifesting. It manifests a certain way, and they appear to be taking birth. It's actually manifesting, appearing. They don't take birth like we take birth, because their bodies aren't like our bodies. Their bodies are completely transcendental and spiritual. They're not covered with the material elements like the conditioned souls. So by hearing these pastimes, we can begin to revive our own consciousness of who we really are. We're not these bodies. Bodies are temporary. We're eternal beings. So, chapter 10 is entitled Parashuram's Discomfiture. Having Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Having thus safely handed back to Dasarath at Mithila the princes entrusted to him in Ayodhya, and after attending the wedding celebrations, Vishwamitra took leave of the two kings and went to the Himalaya. In the story of Ram, Vishwamitra has no further part. So Vishwamitra was very instrumental in the marriage of Sita and Ram. So the princes have gone back with their father Dasarath and gone back to Ayodhya, and Vishwamitra has gone to the Himalaya. And we won't hear about Vishwamitra anymore in the Ramayana. Vishwamitra may be said to be the foundation of the grand temple of Rama's story. After Rama's wedding in Mithila, we do not see him again. It should be noted that characters that played a leading role in one canto of Valmiki almost fade out in separate cantos. Vishwamitra, who dominates the Balakanda, does not appear again. Similarly, Kaikeyi and Guha are prominent only in Ayodhya Kanda. The same thing can be said of Bharat, whom we do not come across in the chapters intervening between the Chitrakutu meeting and Rama's return to Ayodhya. The poet hardly brings Bharat before our eyes during the period of Ram's distress. The characters in Valmiki Ramayana, unlike those in the Mahabharata and in ordinary plays and novels, do not present themselves off and on. Critics should bear this general characteristic of Valmiki's epic in mind. King Dasarath returned to Ayodhya accompanied by his retinue. On the way, there were bad omens, and anxious Dasarath asked Vashishta what they portended. Vashishta replied that there was no need to be alarmed, for though the birds in the air indicated approaching trouble, the animals on the land promised a happy consummation. So Vashishta is advisor to the king. As Dasarath and Vashishta were thus conversing, there broke out a great storm. Trees were uprooted, the earth quaked, and clouds of dust went up and hid the sun, and there was an all-enveloping darkness. Everyone was terror-struck. Soon they knew the reason for the strange phenomena. There stood before them the awe-inspiring figure Parashuram, the sworn enemy of Kshatriyas, with a bow on one shoulder and a battle axe on the other, and with an arrow shining like lightning in his hand. Terrible in appearance, with his matted locks gathered overhead, he looked like Rudra, exulting in the destruction of Tripura. His face emitted flame-like radiance. The son of sage Jamadagni struck terror among Kshatriyas, many generations of which he had annihilated. Wherever he went, he was preceded by storm and earthquake, and the Kshatriya race trembled in fear. This is an incarnation of Krishna. The Brahmins in Dasarath's retinue said to one another, because his father was killed by a king, Parashuram took a vow to destroy the Kshatriya race. We dared to hope that his vengeful wrath had been quenched in the blood of the innumerable kings he has slain. Has he again started his cruel campaign? However, they honored him with the customary offering of water. After receiving it, Parashuram addressed himself to Ram. Son of Dasarath, I've heard of your prowess. I was somewhat surprised to learn that you strung the bow in King Janaka's court and that you drew the string till the bow broke. Here is my bow, equal in all respects to the one you broke. This is the bow of Vishnu, was entrusted to my father. If you are able to string this bow, you will be worthy of my battle. It's interesting because Parashuram is a Vishnu incarnation of Krishna, and Ram is a Leela incarnation of Krishna. So the Vishnu incarnation is challenging the Leela incarnation. Very interesting. Dasarath was perturbed at this turn of events, and he begged that his son Ram should be spared the trial. He said to Parashuram, you are a Brahmin. We have heard that, satiated with your revenge, you have gone back to tapas, as becomes your order, in pursuance of your plighted word to Indra, after giving away the earth you had conquered to Kashyapa. Is it proper that you should break your vow, seek to injure a prince of tender year, who has done you no wrong, and is dearer to us than life? Parashuram heard him unmoved, without so much as looking at him, and addressed himself solely to Ram, as though the others did not exist. Vishvakarma originally made two exactly similar bows. One of them was given to Rudra, and the other to Vishnu. This is the one given to Vishnu. What you are said to have strung and bent to the breaking point was Shila's bow. See if you can string this bow of Vishnu, and if you do, it will be proof of your skill and strength, and then I will honor you by fighting with you. Parashuram spoke in a loud and arrogant tone. To him Ram replied in courteous manner, yet in firm tones. Son of Jamadagni, you have been vengeful because your father was killed by a king. I do not blame you for that, but you cannot put me down as you have humbled others. Please, give me your bow. So saying, he took the bow and arrow from Parashuram. He strung the bow, and setting the arrow to it, drew the string. Addressing Parashuram, he said with a smile, this mighty Vaishnava arrow placed on the string cannot be put back idly. It must destroy something. Tell me, shall it destroy your powers of locomotion, or would you rather that it consume the fruits of your tapas? As the son of Dasarath strung the bow of Vishnu, the glory of Parashuram's face faded, and he stood no longer the warlike conqueror, but a self-subdued rishi for the purpose of the Parashuram avatar was over. Parashuram said mildly to the Prince of Ayodhya, I realize who you are. I'm not sorry that you have quenched my arrogance. Let all my tapas go to you, but because of my promise to Kashyapa, I cannot remain in his domain and have therefore to hurry back to the Mahendra mountains before the sun sets. Let me use my power of locomotion for this single thing. Subject to this, let the arrow which you have set to the bow consume all my power earned through tapas. So saying, Parashuram went in reverent circumambulation around the prince and departed. Ayodhya's citizens were overjoyed to hear that Dasaratha and the royal princes were returning to the capital. The city was festive with flowers and shone like the Devaloka. What an amazing pastime that was. The Vishnu form of Parashuram challenges the Leela form of Ram, and Ram is victorious. How amazing. Ram and Sita lived happily in Ayodhya for 12 years. So he was 16, so now he's about 28. Ram had surrendered his heart to Sita. It was difficult for one to say whether their love grew because of their virtues or it was planted in their beauty of form. Their hearts communed even without speech. Their hearts communed even without speech. Sita, rejoicing in Ram's love, shone like Lakshmi in heaven. Long afterwards, when their forest life began, Anasuya, the great sage, Atri's holy wife, Anasuya, the great sage Atri's holy wife, extolled Sita's love for Ram. The wording in this is like really awkward. So the adjectives are like after the nouns. It's like grammatically Hare Krishna. And Sita answered, how else could it be? Ram is a perfect king. His love for me equals mine for him. His affection is unchanging, pure of heart. He has mastered the senses. So that was chapter 10. Parashuram. Having all his power earned by tapasya removed by Ram. Hare Krishna.